Hey, what's up, guys? I haven't done one of these in a long time, and I figured it was time. This will be the third and final Ratchet 1 speedrun commentary that I have left to do. If you've seen my New Game Plus one or my All Gold Bolts one, then this is going to work pretty much the same sort of way. This is for any percent. This is for the 32 that I got about maybe 2 months or so now. So, yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. So if you've seen either of those two, notably the AGB one, then this works pretty much the same way. This is any percent. We start from a fresh file, so pretty much all we have at the start here are these side flips, just chaining them over and over and traversing throughout the planet. Kind of a big thing to note about any percent categories, especially Ratchet 1 any percent, is that bolt RNG is super important. Ideally, I want somewhere around 450, excuse me. I almost said 4,500. That's not quite there yet, but somewhere generally around that. If I remember right, yeah, I have like, what, 430, 420 something, somewhere around there. So not the best, but good enough. And if I remember right, we're pretty sketch with bolts for the first little bit, but again, it's just kind of barely good enough. So, Novalis, same thing. There's a jump you can do here, and by kind of hugging that corner, you'll grab the corner and pull yourself up, and you can skip straight to the end here. Again, if you've seen the other two commentaries I've done, then if I repeat any information, I apologize. And I do highly recommend checking both the NG Plus and AGB commentaries out if you enjoy this one as well. So yeah, hoping for somewhere around 500 leaving this planet. I don't know where. 486. Yeah, less than ideal, but good enough. And it was pretty fast too. So, and we got the double bomb drop there at the end, which is very, very fortunate because bombs are also pretty important for the first half of the run. Alright, so this is Kerwan. This is the first, this is where the run kind of opens up and we start getting more movement options. And, this is kind of where the run starts to pick up a little bit. So, the first thing we're going to do is actually traverse our way over to this bridge with this helicopter. And ideally, by the time I kill him and collect his bolts, we're going to get 1,000 bolts. Which, now we're looking okay. 1048 is really good. If you get over 1,000 here, it's kind of hard to complain. And the reason we need 1,000 is so we can buy the helipack here from Al Shack, which is just, now we can long jump, we can neutral cancel, we can mid-air long jump, as you see. I forget how I explained it in the other two commentaries, but pretty much it is a long jump turned into a side flip turned into a long jump. So you get the speed of the initial long jump, the throw of the side flip, and then the distance of the second long jump. So, and yeah, I overextended by a lot here, but whatever, that's fine. Mid-airs are a very effective way of gaining not only speed, but also distance, and a lot of the separation between, like, a starting out runner, a medium tier runner, and a higher end runner is how well they can perform mid-airs and how well they can chain them together for, again, the efficiency, how much speed they're getting, how much distance they're getting, how much height they're getting, even sometimes with the throw of with the side flip in the middle there, the throw that it gives you, sometimes you need more or less height depending. So that was train skip, and I pretty much talked over all of it, so go watch the AGB one. I guess hopefully I explained it better in there. But Yeah, so actually very important at the end there, once we get the Eudora infobot, we reload, and here I try and do a really crazy chain to skip a bunch of moving, and we just barely get a ledge grab, which is very nice. I kill one dog there, and that is going to... Oh god, bad movement. Okay. That is going to set up a very crucial trick in the early game for Ratchet 1, which is called Jankpot. It's the jackpot glitch. It was found by a runner named Janky, so it was nicknamed Jankpot. So I'm gonna break these boxes here by the gold bolt in a very specific way after killing a dog and reloading, or reloading and then killing a dog. And as you see, we get a ridiculous amount of bolts. We're gonna hopefully have somewhere around the 4,000 mark. And again, like I said, bolts are a little tight in the early game, so not even 3,900. Most runners would probably... Oh my god, what's wrong with me? Why did I do that? Most runners would have probably reset by this point, but you know, if you have less than 4,000, you normally just have to grab some extra on Blarg, which, if I remember right, I do have to do that. And also the Blarg is just not that good to begin with, but we'll get there. So this is Eudora. I think we use this like 1 or 2 spots on Kerwan, but those are called SIs, or slope intercepts. And basically you can chain high jumps in certain spots when going up a slope like that, and you can stack them. And in this case, we can go right over top of the locked door, or the building with the locked door, and then just come in through the top. And it skips the whole planet, pretty much. Eudora is notoriously extremely short in every category, even in All Checkmarks, which is the like 100% category. Both visits to Eudora, you know, one hovers just around like the 40-second mark, and one hovers just over a minute usually. So it's short in pretty much every category. So here we are on Blarg, and we're going to be mostly gathering bolts here, again trying to make up for the less than ideal Jankpot, which is fine. It's good to have, you know, extra bolts, extra bombs. Again, bolt routing in this category is extremely tight, so even grabbing extra sometimes has its merits. And here I'm going to try not to die. These crabs do give a lot of bolts, so that's good, but yeah, the less time spent, well, bonking, but also the less time spent killing crabs and breaking boxes on Blarg, the better. Okay, so here's a cool trick, which I fumble a little bit here, trying to rush into it, but this is called box clip. And basically, like, if the camera is positioned a certain way when you're standing on these boxes and you go up against the ledge here, it'll just push you straight through. And with this, we can actually do some more SIs around the pod here and access the room again with the locked door and the infobot to Planet Rilgar. So we're just going to go right over top, grab the infobot, and by reloading, we can go right back to our ship afterward. So yeah, unfortunately, with the slow box clip and also having to grab some extra bolts, that was less than ideal, but that's okay. That's just time save for next run. Everyone always loves to say that. Okay, so if you haven't seen the NG Plus or the AGB commentaries that I did, which at this point they're about 6 months old, so maybe we'll update those. We shall see. I think they still hold pretty well. The information is there, but this is where the run gets really difficult. So this trick is called Cineflips, and I'm basically waiting for the buoy to tilt down in a certain way, and then basically over certain surfaces you can chain a lot of movement together infinitely. And so in this case, we're chaining side flip after side flip, left and right, back and forth, and there's a very precise timing to it. They're really hard. If you drop any input, the whole thing gets eaten, and so it can just be a mess. That is one of the hardest tricks in the whole run, and in Ratchet 1 in general, and thankfully we got a first try, so pretty solid. Now, similarly, this next trick on Planet Umbris, this is called Ship to Boss. So basically, these are long jumps canceled into side flips, back and forth over the mud here, and this trick's really hard and requires a lot of dexterity and practice, and you can actually go from the ship all the way to the boss arena, which if you see the boss should show up. Actually, you can barely even see him, but that's the boss arena. And again, lock door, grab the info bot, and then we just die, and we spawn right back at the ship. And this actually was a gold split, which was very, very nice. And again, that is a very, very difficult trick. It requires a lot of practice. So those are probably the two most ridiculous planets as far as just sheer movement and how many runs die there. Oh, and don't mind the frame drops here. I don't know what happened. But Battaglia is also a very tricky planet. There's a lot of extra bolt collecting that we have to do, and the movement is not difficult, but if you squander it, it's usually pretty hard to recover. And so with that, it can be one of the more difficult planets to keep up with, because, you know, after a while, everything just needs to be better and better and better. And so, and here I try to, you can actually chain 2 midairs and go straight into the cutscene trigger here, but I didn't get that, so I have to do a backup SI here. Unfortunate, but I don't know, it's maybe like 10 seconds or something. So there's actually 2 info bots here. There's the Orxon one, which we just got, and then we're going to backtrack for the Gaspar one. And in order to get the Gaspar one, you may have noticed we didn't get the grind boots. And that's normally how you're supposed to get them. There's a long, like, grind boot section that you have to endure. And the grind boots are really far out the way, and they cost 2,000 bolts. And like I said, bolt routing is super important. So we're actually going to, and this is pretty ridiculous if you've never seen it, I believe it's 11 very precise SIs up this mountain. And so this is the very infamous Battaglia SI, and this trick takes a lot of practice, a lot of, again, because you have very specific spots that you have to land in. So it's just a matter of memorizing where they are and, you know, how to adapt your movement as best you can to make sure that you hit all of them in sequence. So yeah, I fumbled a little bit with the first couple. That tends to happen. Still pretty solid. And then this is the grind rail that I was talking about once it comes in here. So we're actually going to be gliding up this rail and then moving on to the rail you see over in the far right there. In order to land on the platform and get the Gaspar info bot. And this is pretty much all or nothing at this point. If you die, you spawn back where the Orxon 1 info bot was. And unfortunately, this rail gliding here is really, really slow. Which, you know, it's unfortunate, but that happens. And then, yeah, there's the platform. There's the info bot. And that's Battaglia. Like I said, pretty slow, but this is, again, a very, very hard planet to keep up with everything. There's a lot going on. Okay, so Orxon 1, the last planet in the dubbed Elite Four. And notably the only time that we play as Clank here. There's normally like 2 Clank sections back to back, and they take something like 6 minutes or something. It is just ridiculous. And thankfully, we have a very interesting way of actually clipping through that wall there, and then you can actually proxy out of the pipes. And again, if you've seen the AGB or NG plus one, there's a couple ways to do that, but doing the tree clip it was a huge wall for a lot of people for a long time. until Ratchet and Clank speedrun guru, Mr. Sippy, came up with the setup that was pretty easy, actually. It still fumbles here and there, but it is just a country miles distance easier than all the other previous methods were in. And so getting it second try there is still really fast, and that's one wall down. Okay, so Gaspar is pretty simple. It's just some bolt collecting, and then we have another SI here up this mountain, which is very easy. And this is pretty much the end. We're just going to go here, and we're going to grab the pilot's helmet, which is the only item we need here, and then grab the rest of these bolts. And ideally, I want somewhere around, say, 14 or 1500. And if you look, I'm actually trying to, like, tap dance around a checkpoint trigger there. So you see we have 1600. That's pretty good. And by doing so, I can die, I can spawn back at the ship, and I'm going to buy some bombs because we're going to need them on the next planet. Alright, so other than Blarg, Pokitaru is probably the worst split in this run specifically, and that's because, I mean, Poki is also just the longest planet in the run by a pretty good margin, actually. So that's the guy. That's our boy. And we have to escort him through the end of the planet. And basically, all you have is the bomb glove and your wrench, and perhaps not the most effective way of dealing with enemies here, but it's just what we have to go with. In New Game Plus, you have all the weapons, so you can use the Tesla Claw, the Pyrocitor, whatever you want, pretty much. And in All Checkmarks, we actually have the Suck Cannon, which is infinitely better. But in this and AGB, we're stuck with just the bomb glove, so that's that. And something to note is I actually killed those fish in a very particular way. If you remember Jangpot from earlier in the run, it's pretty much the same sort of like principle. I'm swinging, or I'm trying to wrench 3 and then bomb 5, and ideally I will get a bump in how much bolts are dropped, and usually they'll drop between, you know, on average I'd say between 150 and 200 if done right, and that's really good and super beneficial. And there you go. There's proof why the bomb glove is perhaps not the most ideal. You know, on top of my less than stellar aim, but that's, you know, a conversation for a different day. So yeah, that's Island 2. Not the fastest, but, you know, we're still in there. The real big problem with this Poke actually comes from towards the end of the planet. There is actually a ship fight that we have to do, and the method I do is consistent, but also, you know, it can be a little precise and a little hard to replicate perfectly every time, and so it went not so well in this run, but we'll get there. So again, I'm trying to ideally wrench 2 or 3, ideally 3, and then bomb 5 in a cluster. And see, I'm just shy, I mean, you know, 1 bolt, but just shy of 3,000 bolts here, and ideally you want somewhere around the 3,500 mark. So again, really pushing it with bolts. But that is unfortunately just this category sometimes. So because of that, I'm also trying to grab extra crates. Like you see now I'm at 3,200. And then I don't believe... Oh, nice gainer. Yeah. the gainer, and then I lost all my speed anyways. You can actually clip through that door. There's a precise lineup for it, but it's not too bad. Okay, so here's the ship fight. And again, the way I do this, ideally you want to be taking out some of that back chain, and then you see there's one that didn't die there, there's one more that didn't die there, there's two more that didn't die there, and then here, thankfully got some missiles. And then I was really early for this one, and I missed a bunch, and so we're just constantly going in and out of the ship, and there's just so many parts still here, so that's quite unfortunate. And so just trying to grab the last few pieces and make this as unugly as I can, but yeah, we lost, I think, like 20 seconds here, which is unfortunate, but thankfully, those are, to my recollection, again, it's been about 2 months since I've seen this. I believe those are the worst ones of the bunch. Okay, so you'll also note that we bought the thruster pack on Poke, which is very nice. It's going to be very useful for the rest of the game, but this planet in particular is super helpful. So because we don't get the swing shot in this version of the category, we have to have some kind of creative movement for this planet. We have to basically escort this infobot a bunch. So I'm going to try and reach its triggers as best I can, and here I'm actually doing a trick called tiptoes, where basically you can, by holding the stick neutral, you can kind of like jump again off of the very top of the surface. And so I'm actually trying to tiptoe off of the goop here. Oh, and here I remember I had a hard time getting in that corner. There's like a weird invisible like wall bubble that kind of hovers around that area, and so sometimes it's a little hard to get in there, but that's not that big a deal. And then that corner cut around the mountain saves a little bit, so that's also really good. And then it's actually faster to glide up this than use the magna boots, but you need the magna boots for it, so that's why we grab them. And then that's pretty much the end. This was, all in all, other than a couple things that lost like a couple seconds here or there, pretty solid, all things considered. No deaths. Obviously, if you mess up a tiptoe, you just die, and so you start back pretty far, and that can be a mess, but yeah, all things considered, not too bad. Okay, so everyone's favorite planet. This is Hoven. And this is a similar trick to the ones mentioned earlier. These are, again, side flips canceled back and forth, but this time with the thruster pack. And this version of this trick is actually significantly easier, but you need the thruster pack for it, so that's why we can't do it elsewhere. And basically, the ship has 5 sections, and so ideally you're trying to aim at a pretty precise spot in between a bunch of the sections, and that way you'll actually get some critical hits. And they do, I believe it's like 5 times the damage, which, again, they're really, really small, but we're trying to get them as best we can. And that was a pretty good fight, actually. This was, for doing infinite side flips, that's the trick I mentioned earlier, and which are a little bit slower, but all things considered, 109 Hoven in any percent, pretty decent. Definitely will take that. Okay, so if I remember correctly, I don't go for the fast chain here. There's basically 2 chains here. There's one to the left, which is really fast but really risky. And then this one that I'm about to do to the right, you basically go around the area with the trigger and enter from the back. And it loses like 10 seconds, but it's way easier. And so I figured at this point, I was ahead. I was more than on pace at this point, and I was feeling confident that I could pull this run together, so I went with it. I believe I do the same chain in the AGB run. But yeah, now we're just gathering some bolts here, which I'm reading the chat messages from this run, and Musa is yelling at me for not having a good bolt count, but you know, 2200, and we made it work. Oh, and you can actually skip the boss fight here by going across to the bridge there for whatever reason. If you land over there and hit the trigger in a certain way, the boss just kind of dies. The game pretty much doesn't check to see if you've actually killed the boss or not. It's really weird, but very useful because that boss is really annoying. Alright, Ultanas. This is another pretty lengthy planet, but you'll see why in a second. So here I'm just gathering some more bolts. We have to buy 3 more things left in the run. So we have to buy the PDA, which is 1,000, the Quartu coordinates, which are 2,000, and then at the final planet, Delden 2, we have to buy the Pyrocitor, which is 2,500. So these bolts here that I'm about to get are going to be enough to cover the 2 things we have to buy on this planet, so that's good. Yeah, we're sitting at about 3,400, which is pretty standard, I would say, by this point. That's about what to be expected. Again, 3,000 we have to spend on this planet at various points. And, yeah, we're just walking on the Magna Rail. There is a pretty elaborate skip you can do to actually access the PDA early, but it's pretty hard. It's pretty much all or nothing, and pretty much in this category, you're only going for it if you're trying to secure a sub 30, which, again, this category is really hard, and so that's just kind of where the meta is dictating. But yeah, it's pretty hard, and it is pretty much all or nothing. So there's a corner cut you can do here, which is always really scary, but you know, we're in there. That trick, by the way, is called beam jump, and it's called beam jump because if you see to the left there, you access the PDA area by crossing a bunch of beams up there, and again, really hard, extremely precise wrench SIs, and yeah, it's a lot. Now that we have the PDA, we can do all kinds of funny stuff, like this is PDA side flips here, just, you know, chaining side flips together. And the PDA, by the way, if you, again, haven't seen the AGB or NG Plus commentary, the PDA is ridiculous. Oh, 1,100 leaving here. That's really good. That's, like, pretty much spot on with where you want to be. I'd say ideally, by the time you hit Velden 2, you want, like, 1,200, 1,300, somewhere around there. And you can get the crates you need very easily after that, so that's a good spot to be in. Anyways, the PDA, there's lots of funny stuff you can do that basically involves just opening and closing it at certain times, and in combination with first-person mode, which you see here I'm doing, again, more PDA side flips, some infinite jumps. And yeah, you can basically just be suspended in midair and infinitely and continue to jump, and we're going to use that in quite a few spots on these last few planets. It's a super valuable tool. So yeah, that was Quartu. This is normally a really long planet, but the way in which we did that, we actually skip straight to the end of the second path that you actually normally have to come back to this planet to do. But we're not going to go to Kalibo 3 because we don't need to. All right. Drex Fleet. So for some reason, the bottom part of that tube there is just hollowed out, and you can jump right through, and it's pretty funny. So we're gonna do a pretty elaborate chain here on the ship's hull, and cut around this corner to the left. And I have really bad speed here. Oh my god! Am I fumble the chain? No, barely. Wow, look at me go! That was really fucking scary. Jesus Christ. Anyways, but yeah, that's the chain. Not a very good one, but good enough. So some more infinite jumps here, and the bottom part of this side of the ship is also hollow, so we can just go in and then PDA side flip up, and this is actually the final room. So we're gonna grab the trigger, get the coordinates for Velden 1, and we're done. And so again, we're just gonna grab the last couple bolts that we need. There's this stack here which we can grab, which has a pretty good amount. Now we're at 1800. And then turn around here, and we're gonna grab these two stacks, turn around, these two stacks, and that should be more than enough. Actually, looks like I'm fumbling a little bit. Oh goodness. All right, well, you know, for all of the shady bolt counts we've had, all the shady bolt rolls we've had, we made it in the end. All right, so one last chain here, and this chain is really hard to do and get a good speed and good angle if you don't have the walloper, which we do the same chain in NG Plus, and I almost goofed this here really bad. We do the same chain in NG Plus, but you have the walloper, so it's way easier to get the speed and the angle that you need. And then from here, we're gonna do this chain, and we actually skip spawning the boss here, which is extremely important because we can cut through this wall and do some more infinite jumps here. And we're actually going to infinite jump straight to the final boss area. And if you didn't see the All Gold Bolts commentary, then the reason that we buy the Pyrocitor is because on the PAL PS3 version of Ratchet 1, for whatever reason, we believe it's due to the difference between a 50 Hz PS2 version and a 60 Hz PS3 version, but for whatever reason, the Pyrocitor deals damage on every single frame as long as you are right up close in the boss's face. So if you see here, you are absolutely destroying his health bar. This was actually a really good fight, which is very important because, well, I guess I'll say this now since we're going to talk about it in, about 10 seconds. This run actually cut 32 by a frame. And so at this point, I see I can barely make it. I'm like literally screaming, and I hit the button. The final split time was 32:59.94. So, you know, just barely squeaked it in, but we did it. And this is honestly one of the runs that I'm probably the most proud of that I've done this year. I still think there's obviously plenty of places to improve, mainly Pokitaru and Blarg Station, but I'll be back to this category soon enough for sure. I definitely want to try and go for a 31. I think I can do it. So, if you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments. I'm probably going to start doing some more of these. I've been meaning to for a while now, especially with how much I've been playing Ratchet 2. NG Plus, no IMG, so hopefully I'll get on that sometime soonish. And once again, if you haven't, please check out the All Gold Bolts and New Game Plus commentaries that I did. And yeah, I'll see y'all soon.